Pulling away isn't about playing games or trying to provoke a reaction. It's about honoring your self-worth. It's a powerful act of emotional discipline and self-respect. When you stop seeking validation from others and shift your energy toward personal growth, something changes. You no longer operate from neediness or fear. Instead, you stand grounded in your own value. And as you rise, those who once overlooked you begin to notice. They feel the loss. They feel your absence. But by then, you're no longer chasing, you're evolving. And that silent transformation is what makes them crave your presence again. The shock of your growth, people often get comfortable with the version of you they've always known. They assume you'll stay the same, they're always available, always dependable, always there when they need something. Over time, they stop appreciating your presence because they think they have you figured out. But when you decide to pull back and focus on your own growth, it completely disrupts that expectation. It throws them off balance. It creates a shock. Imagine this. For months or maybe even years, you've been the one initiating conversations, making plans, checking in and offering support. You were the dependable one, the consistent one. But then something shifts. You stop texting first. You stop showing up uninvited. You start pouring your time into your goals instead of into someone who didn't value you. Suddenly they don't hear from you. You're not chasing. You're not available like you used to be. Instead, you're in the gym. You're leveling up your career. You're surrounding yourself with people who respect and uplift you. And while you're focused on improving yourself, they're left confused and surprised. The person they thought they knew, the one they took for granted, is changing, evolving, growing. And that unexpected growth catches them off guard. Here's the truth. People fear change, especially when that change comes from someone they didn't expect it from. When they thought they had control. When they underestimated you. Your growth makes them question everything. They start wondering if they misjudged you. They begin to realize they may have overlooked something special. That shock is not just emotional, it's deeply psychological. It forces them to reflect, to pay attention, and to rethink how they treated you. But the beauty of this transformation is that it's not about them. It's about you. You're not growing to prove them wrong. You're not becoming better to make them regret anything. You're evolving for your own sake. You're building a better life for yourself because you deserve it, not because you want to make someone notice. That's where the true power lies. When growth is authentic and self-driven, people can feel it. They see the difference in the way you carry yourself, in the way you speak, in your focus, your presence, and even your silence. And when you grow without them, when you stop needing their validation and start building your own confidence, it creates a ripple effect they cannot ignore. People are naturally drawn to transformation, especially when it comes from someone they thought would always stay the same. Your glow-up becomes undeniable. They start watching from a distance. They check your social media, ask mutual friends about you, and suddenly become curious about what you're doing. And the more they observe, the more they realize they missed out. But by that time, you're already moving forward. You've already started to thrive. And here's what makes this so powerful. Your transformation speaks louder than any words. You don't have to say anything. Your actions tell the whole story. You chose yourself. You invested in yourself. And that decision changed everything. So choose one area of your life and commit to it. Whether it's your health, your finances, your mindset, or your relationships, make your personal growth a non-negotiable priority. Not for revenge, not to get someone back, but because you are worthy of living a life that reflects your highest potential. When people finally notice how far you've come, they'll realize what they lost. But by then, you won't be waiting for their recognition. You'll be too busy building a life that no longer includes anyone who failed to see your value in the first place. The magnetic pull of self-sufficiency. Let's talk about one of the most powerful yet underrated traits you can develop: self-sufficiency. In a world where most people are constantly seeking approval, attention, and emotional reassurance from others, being someone who stands strong on their own is incredibly rare. And that rarity is exactly what makes self-sufficiency so magnetic. People don't realize how attractive it is when someone doesn't need external validation to feel whole. When you stop depending on others to make you feel good about yourself, when your sense of peace, confidence, and happiness comes from within you, become a force of nature. You're no longer chasing attention. You're not looking for someone to complete you. You are enough. Self-sufficiency doesn't mean you isolate yourself. It doesn't mean you push people away or act like you don't care. It simply means that your emotional well-being is no longer tied to whether someone else accepts you, texts you back, or chooses you. You become emotionally independent, and that is one of the most attractive energies a person can have. When you are self-sufficient, you carry a quiet confidence. It's not loud or boastful. It doesn't need to be announced. People feel it. You walk into a room differently. You speak with conviction. You make decisions based on your own values, not on a desperate need to please someone. That kind of confidence can't be faked, and people notice. Suddenly, the person who once overlooked you or took your presence for granted starts to wonder why you no longer need their attention. They begin to question what changed. Why are you so calm? Why aren't you reaching out like you used to? Why do you seem more grounded, more centered, more complete without them? That shift creates tension. It flips the dynamic. Where you once felt like you needed them to feel whole, now they feel the void of your absence. And in that void, they realize how much of your energy they used to depend on. When you stop giving that away freely, they start to crave it. Here's the truth: people want what they can't easily have. When you were always available, always the one reaching out or trying to make things work, they didn't feel the need to value your effort. But when you reclaim your time, your energy, and your emotional independence, it forces them to look at you through a new lens. That doesn't mean you're doing it to get a reaction. The real win here is not their renewed interest, it's the inner strength you gain. Self-sufficiency teaches you how to protect your peace. It helps you create boundaries without guilt. It makes you realize that anyone who can't respect your worth doesn't deserve access to your life. You start becoming more selective with your time and energy. You stop feeling the need to explain yourself. You begin to live life on your own terms. And the more you do that, the more magnetic you become. Not because you're trying to be attractive, but because you're embodying something most people lack: self-respect. Start practicing self-sufficiency in small ways. Take yourself out for dinner. Spend time doing things that light you up. Build a routine that makes you feel strong and fulfilled. Learn to enjoy your own company. The more confident you become in your solitude, the less you'll feel the need to chase anyone who doesn't recognize your worth. And the best part, when others see you thriving without needing them, they'll want to be part of your life again. But by then, you won't be chasing anyone. You'll be too busy becoming everything you were always meant to be, the envy of your newfound confidence. Confidence changes everything, especially when it comes from someone who was once unsure, hesitant, and constantly seeking approval. When you begin to show up differently, more certain, more grounded, and more self-assured, it catches people off guard. It shakes up the entire dynamic. Suddenly, they're looking at you with new eyes, wondering where this powerful version of you came from. For a long time, maybe you were the type who second-guessed yourself. You asked for their opinions, sought their validation, and let their approval shape how you saw yourself. You didn't trust your own voice. Instead, you leaned on others to tell you that you were good enough, smart enough, attractive enough. And because of that, they held a certain power over you. But something shifted. You stopped depending on their feedback to define your worth. You stepped back and started focusing on yourself. You built confidence through your actions by setting boundaries, taking care of your body, learning new things, and honoring your goals. Slowly but surely, you began to trust your instincts. You stopped asking for permission to be who you are. Now that same person who once felt superior or in control suddenly sees a version of you they don't recognize. You walk with purpose, you speak with conviction, you no longer shrink to fit into their expectations. And that transformation makes them uncomfortable. Why? Because your confidence forces them to reflect on their own insecurities. It reminds them of everything they haven't done. It exposes the ways they relied on your self-doubt to maintain control in the relationship. When you rise, it highlights where they've stayed stagnant. And even if they don't say it out loud, that contrast creates a quiet envy. They start wondering why they didn't see this version of you before. How did they miss it? How did they overlook the strength and potential that's now so obvious? And more importantly, why don't they feel that way about themselves? It's not always toxic or intentional. Sometimes it's subtle, a shift in the way they speak to you, a change in their energy. But make no mistake, your confidence is disrupting the balance they once relied on. You're no longer the one asking for attention or reassurance. You've stepped into a new identity, and it demands respect. But here's the real beauty. This confidence is not about impressing them. It's not about proving them wrong. It's about finally seeing yourself clearly. You've learned that confidence doesn't mean being the loudest person in the room. It's not about arrogance or ego. It's about having an unshakable sense of who you are, even when no one is clapping for you. True confidence is quiet, it's steady, it comes from knowing your worth even when others fail to recognize it. It's being okay with your flaws because you've accepted them. It's trusting your own path without needing constant approval. And when you start showing up with that kind of energy, people can't help but notice. They'll be drawn to you, not just because you've changed, but because they never saw this side of you before. You've become someone who knows what they want, who doesn't beg for attention, and who's no longer afraid to stand alone. That kind of energy is magnetic, and yes, it can spark envy in the very people who once overlooked you. But that's not your problem to fix. Your job is to keep growing, to keep showing up as your best self, and to never dim your light just to make someone else feel more comfortable. Let your confidence speak for itself. Those who respect it will rise to meet you. Those who don't will fall away. And in either case, you win. The intrigue of unpredictability. Unpredictability is one of the most powerful forms of influence in any relationship, yet it's often overlooked. When people think they have you figured out, when they can anticipate your every move, they stop paying attention. They get comfortable. They assume you'll always respond the same way, always be there, always act according to the pattern they've come to expect. And once you become predictable, you become less interesting in their eyes. Think about it. If you were always the one initiating conversations, making plans, and checking in, the other person came to expect it. They knew what time you'd text, what you'd say, and how you'd react. There was no excitement, no mystery, no challenge. That familiarity, while once comforting, eventually becomes routine. And routine in the wrong context can make someone stop trying. But when you decide to pull back and stop being so predictable, everything changes. You stop responding immediately. You stop reaching out just to keep the connection alive. Instead, you start focusing on yourself. You live your life without making them the center of it. That shift alone creates intrigue. Suddenly, they don't know what to expect. You've disrupted the pattern. You're not behaving the way you used to, and now they're left wondering why. They start questioning your behavior. Are you seeing someone else? Are you just too busy with your own goals? Are you losing interest? That curiosity leads them to think about you more. The very absence of your predictable behavior creates space for them to reevaluate the role you played in their life. The human mind is wired to solve puzzles, to find patterns, and to seek certainty. When someone can't predict your every move, it turns you into a puzzle they can't easily solve. And that's when their attention sharpens. They begin to observe, analyze, and wonder. The person they thought they had complete access to is now a mystery. That mystery becomes magnetic. But make no mistake, being unpredictable isn't about playing games or manipulating someone's emotions. It's about living authentically. When you truly start prioritizing your goals, your time, and your peace, unpredictability becomes a natural byproduct. You're not avoiding people. You're just not revolving your life around them anymore. Your attention is now earned, not guaranteed. This new dynamic also creates a shift in perceived value. When your time and energy were always available, it was easy for others to take them for granted. But once you pull back and make them less accessible, people start to realize that your presence is not something they can assume will always be there. They begin to value the effort you used to give because now they feel its absence. If you want to start creating that sense of unpredictability, begin by changing one habit. If you always text, first stop. If you're always free at a certain time, start filling that time with things that matter to you. Let your absence speak. Let your silence build space. That space is where curiosity grows, and curiosity leads to desire. You don't need to be cold or distant. Just don't be overly available. Don't keep repeating the same patterns that made someone feel like they didn't need to try. Create room for them to wonder what you're doing, how you're doing, and why they're no longer the center of your attention. Unpredictability, when rooted in self-respect and growth, shifts the dynamic in your favor. It makes people pay closer attention. It reminds them that your presence is a privilege, not a promise. And most importantly, it helps you reclaim your sense of identity outside of anyone else's expectations. The realization of what they've lost. One of life's hardest truths is this: people often don't realize the value of something until it's gone. They become so accustomed to your presence, your support, and your effort that they stop appreciating it. You become part of their routine. They assume you'll always be there, always available, always ready to give more. But once you step back and give them space, that illusion begins to crumble. At first, they may not even notice. They might assume you're just busy or that things will eventually go back to normal. They don't feel the urgency because they're used to the dynamic where you're always the one reaching out, checking in, and keeping the connection alive. But over time, your absence begins to echo. They start to feel the difference, not just in the silence, but in the lack of emotional support you used to provide. They notice the missing texts, the canceled plans, the quiet that follows when they expect you to be there. That's when it starts to hit them. They begin to reflect on the moments you brought into their life, your patience, your consistency, your kindness, your understanding. And they realize they were receiving something special without ever truly acknowledging it. This realization does not come all at once. It builds slowly through memories and small moments. They remember your conversations, the times you listened, the way you made them feel supported and safe. Now that it's gone and they start to understand just how much you were offering, they begin to see that you weren't just there. You were giving a piece of yourself every time you showed up. People underestimate what you bring to their life until you stop giving it. When you were consistent, they called it normal. When you were generous with your time, they saw it as expected. But when you pull that energy back, it creates a void. That void becomes impossible to ignore. Regret often follows. They start questioning themselves. Why didn't I appreciate them more? Why did I take them for granted? How did I not see what they were doing for me? These questions don't always have answers, but they stir up a lot of emotional discomfort. They are forced to look at their own behavior and face the consequences of their neglect. But here's the most important point. You didn't do anything wrong by pulling back. You weren't trying to punish them. You were simply honoring your own worth. By stepping away, you gave them the opportunity to see what life is like without your presence. You gave them space to reflect, to feel the difference, and to recognize your value on their own. That kind of awakening can be powerful. It can drive someone to want to reconnect, to fix what they broke, to make things right. But your growth is not about them. You're not stepping back to make someone miss you. You're stepping back to protect your energy, to heal, and to focus on what truly matters, your peace and your purpose. If they come back, it should be with a deeper appreciation and a willingness to meet you where you are now, not where you were when you were doing all the work. And if they don't come back, that's a sign too. Either way, you're no longer giving your time and love to someone who didn't fully appreciate it. By pulling away, you made it clear your presence is a privilege, not something to be expected. And that message, whether they admit it or not, is one they will not forget. The desire to be part of your new journey. When you pull back and begin focusing on yourself, something powerful begins to happen. You start evolving. You begin exploring new interests, improving your mindset, and building a life that revolves around your growth and fulfillment. Whether it's diving into a new hobby, leveling up your career, strengthening your health, or simply surrounding yourself with people who genuinely value you, this shift becomes noticeable not just to you, but to everyone around you. And that includes the person who once took you for granted. The people who didn't appreciate you when you were always available often become the first to notice when your energy changes. Suddenly, you're not prioritizing them. You're not making time for the same conversations or entertaining the same emotional cycles. Your focus has shifted inward, and that creates distance. But in that distance, they see something else, a transformation they didn't expect. You're moving forward. You're progressing. You're stepping into a more powerful version of yourself. And for them, it's like watching a new chapter of your life begin without them in it. That realization sparks something. They begin to feel like they're missing out, like they've been left behind while you embark on something better. This isn't about making someone feel excluded. It's about you finally prioritizing yourself. You're no longer stuck in a loop of overgiving or over-explaining. Instead, you're discovering your value by living it out. That kind of growth is magnetic. It pulls people in not because you're trying to get their attention, but because you're no longer giving it away freely. Now they want to be part of your new journey. They see you becoming someone they didn't fully recognize before, someone stronger, more confident, and more self-aware. And they don't want to miss out on what comes next. That desire to return is rooted in the fear that they won't have access to the new version of you, the one who is healing, glowing, thriving, and moving with intention. But here's the thing, they can't come back the same way they left. They can't re-enter your life casually expecting the old dynamic to resume. You've changed, you've raised your standards. If they want to be part of this new chapter, they must meet you on new terms. That means showing effort. That means respecting your growth. That means understanding that you're no longer waiting for someone to catch up, you're already moving forward. When people see you thriving, it triggers reflection. They begin comparing where they are to where you are. They wonder why they haven't grown in the same way. They question how they missed this side of you and what they need to do to catch up. That sense of urgency of not wanting to be left behind can push them to try and reconnect. But now you hold the power. You decide who gets access to the new life you're building. This is where clarity becomes your compass. You're not closing the door on people out of bitterness. You're simply not opening it for anyone who hasn't done the work. Your journey is sacred. Your growth is hard-earned. You deserve to walk forward with people who uplift and support your evolution, not those who want to benefit from it without contributing anything meaningful in return. The right people will recognize your transformation and want to rise with you. They'll bring encouragement, not competition, support, not confusion, peace, not chaos. And if someone truly wants to walk alongside you, they'll show it through consistent actions, not empty words. Keep building your new life unapologetically. Keep chasing what fulfills you. The people who belong in this next chapter will be drawn to your energy and will match your pace. Those who cannot or will not were never meant to stay. The fear of losing you to someone else. Fear is one of the most powerful emotional drivers in human behavior. And when someone begins to fear that they might lose you to someone else, it often triggers a deep sense of urgency and regret. They start to realize that your absence is no longer temporary. It's real. And worse, it might be permanent, especially if someone else steps in and sees your value in a way they never did. At first, they may try to brush it off. Maybe they convince themselves you'll come back. Maybe they assume you're just going through a phase. But as time passes and you continue to grow, evolve, and thrive without them, the fear begins to set in. You're not just pulling away, you're changing. You're becoming someone stronger, more grounded, more self-assured. And that version of you is incredibly attractive to others. Now the thought creeps in, what if someone else comes along? What if someone else recognizes the qualities they once ignored? What if someone else gives you what they couldn't or wouldn't? That fear becomes a quiet panic growing louder with each day you don't return. People don't often talk about it, but the fear of being replaced is one of the deepest insecurities in relationships. It forces someone to reflect on everything they didn't do every time they overlooked. You failed to appreciate you or treated you like an option. When they imagine someone else stepping into your life and doing what they didn't, it shakes them. They begin to see your worth, not just in hindsight, but in comparison to the idea that someone else could now benefit from what they took for granted. That fear doesn't just create jealousy, it creates clarity. It makes them realize how much they stood to lose and how easily they could have prevented it if they had only valued you when they had the chance. They start to question themselves. Why didn't I appreciate them more? Why did I think they would always be there? Why did I assume I would never lose them? These questions become internal battles, and the more they think about it, the more they want to come back. But now they're not coming back out of comfort. They're coming back out of fear that someone else will love you the way they didn't, will show up for you the way they didn't, and will cherish you in the way you always deserved. But here's the truth, you didn't grow so someone else could regret losing you. You didn't become stronger just to make them afraid. This evolution is not about them, it's about you choosing yourself, protecting your peace, and reclaiming your value. The fear they now feel is simply the natural result of your self-respect. You stopped waiting, you stopped giving, you started healing. And in doing so, you created space for the right people to come into your life, people who will recognize your worth from the beginning, not after they've lost you. If someone truly fears losing you, they will either step up and meet you with real change, or they will step out realizing too late what they let slip through their hands. Either way you win, because now you are no longer available to people who treat your love as an afterthought. Keep moving forward. Keep building your life, and remember, your value is not determined by whether someone fears losing you. It's determined by the way you show up for yourself every single day. If you find yourself constantly giving, chasing, or feeling overlooked in a relationship, it's time to shift your focus inward. The most powerful decision you can make right now is to stop seeking validation from others and start building a deeper connection with yourself. Pulling away isn't about punishing anyone, it's about creating space to rediscover your worth. When you step back, you gain clarity. You begin to see who truly values your presence and who only appreciated your effort when it was convenient. Use this time to grow mentally, emotionally, and physically. Set new goals, develop healthy habits, and surround yourself with people who uplift you. The truth is, when you stop making someone else the center of your world, your energy changes. You become more confident, more grounded, and more focused. And ironically, that's when others begin to notice what they lost. But by then, your life will be so full and fulfilling that you'll no longer need their attention to feel whole. So start today. Choose yourself not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. Your silence, growth, and emotional independence will speak louder than anything you could ever say. Let your evolution be your response, and your peace be your reward.